Welcome back to the garage, ladies and gents, and thanks so much for joining us. Well, we finally got around to getting another project on the channel here. It is another older EVO. I'm really excited to tear into this one. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to start doing a walk around on it to see what all's going on with this bike. And then from there, we're going to get it running again because the bike does actually run, but we want to try to limp it down the road a little bit, and that's going to be quite the challenge. But let's just dig into it and see what's going on. Well, folks, here's the new project. I know a lot of you have been asking about it. We're finally going to start on it. And I'm going to be honest, I may have gotten a little in over my head on this one, but I don't know. I think we can make it work. There's always a way to make things happen. Now, I myself am not much of a touring guy, to be honest, but this bike, being an older EVO, was just way too cool for me to pass up. Now, I did run the VIN number through, again, because I don't know these older touring bikes that much, and this did come back as an FLHS. I believe that's correct. And they called this an ELECTRA Sport, I believe. So back here, for once, I will not be chopping up a fender. Every bit of this will be going back on. For this exhaust that's on here, I'm pretty sure this used to be, you can see their Vance and Hines, and you can see the fun little welds up there behind it. And of course, somebody, put this collector on them. These pipes are not staying on this bike. I'm going to keep my comments to myself about the pipes. I mean, I guess they would look cool on maybe like a Softail or something like that. Hey guys, quick break here. When I was making this first video, I had no idea at all that that's the wrong oil tank that was mounted on the bike. Also had no idea that somebody had cut off part of the frame just to mount the oil tank. Kind of figured somebody's probably going to notice that and point it out, so I just wanted to bring it up. But we will be addressing that as well as some other problems that I missed in some later videos. Now let's get back to the action. One of the positive things I noticed is here on the oil. You can see there's our oil lines right there. The oil lines for the most part look pretty clean. I mean, they're dirty, but there's no oil on them. And of course, can't go wrong with an S&S Super E carb. And for once, we have a breather cover that's not rusted or painted. So that's all going to go right back on. We'll do a simple carb kit to rebuild all that, polish that up. That should look nice. Not much to call out on our front end other than we have no brake calipers. We actually have nothing for the front brakes, so that'll be another eBay purchase, I'm assuming. But let me show you guys a couple of reasons as to why I'm kind of hesitant to test drive this thing. And I think I'm going to have to get the stand for the camera for this one. So this microphone is not the greatest, but I'm going to cock the handlebars back and forth and listen for a noise down here. What's happening is this right here. If you really pay attention to the wheel, you might see it move independent of the fork legs here, but we definitely got a knock in here. Another reason why I'm hesitant to test drive on this thing is right here. You can see our grip, for our throttle. It's just like cruise control, right? It's just completely stuck and hung up. So between having this getting hung up and stuck, no front brakes, and a wobbly front wheel, I just don't want to go testing on it like that. But let's get into this right here. Set this down. And yeah, I think you can see where the concern is just a little bit. So right here, this is already driving me kind of bonkers. All these little connectors. We got some, just some, not exposed, but just a unconnected wire. No jacketing on this stuff, which doesn't protect it. But the big problem is, for those of you that know why I'm pointing at these lines. I don't know what gauge wire that is. That is obviously not battery cables. This right here, running this I almost said light, this small gauge wire for your batteries. You're just asking for a fire. And check it out too. Well, we did. We did have wire nuts on there, the best for home improvement. We've also got wires hanging down. Ooh, we got more wire nuttage. Check that out. It proved. We got just a lot of lines hanging down here. I'm assuming that's not everything we need for the back end. Guess we'll find out. And also, of course, no switch housings up here, so those will have to be wired in. So a lot of wiring to go, but this is another one of those things that I'm going to be very careful with as far as testing on it. I just don't want any fires is all. But we're starting out taking a look at this front wheel to see if we can go out and test on it a little bit. And look what I found. Got a loose spacer right there. And then over here, a little speedo drive is loose. So maybe we're in luck. Maybe it's just a loose axle nut. So let's get these little covers off and see what's going on with it. Those of you that have watched the channel for a while know that I'm not a big fan of these little covers here. Let's see. Well, that's actually, no, look at that, hand tight. That's got to be our problem. So now, do we just go ahead and, tighten her down and see if that fixes it, or should I pull the wheel? I don't know. Let's get a torque wrench on it and see what it does and see how it feels. Well, we torqued her to 50 foot-pounds, and unfortunately, she is absolutely locked up. So that would explain why nobody torqued down on that axle nut. So something is lurking beneath. So let's get this wheel off and see what's going on. Well, let's place our bets as to what's wrong with this. My suspicion is something's just missing. Maybe a bearing's missing or a spacer, something. Hope that's all it is. Well, our wheel's turning again, but there is something inside of this tire. I'm guessing somebody used some balancing beads. I've heard of that stuff before. I've never seen it used before. Plus, there's no weights on the wheel on either side. But regardless, we got to pull this tire because she's got dry rot all over the place. So we'll find out when we pull it off. Oh, it's getting bound up over there. Probably shouldn't have taken that little cap off. There it is. No problems. At least not with the removal. Well, found the problem. The wheel was on backwards. Should have checked it before I removed it, but you know what? I had to pull the wheel off anyway. And what it was doing is this guy right here was, because it was on the wrong side, was literally bottoming out here on the wheel, and it wasn't making contact with the bearing. So that's got to be our problem. So we're going to toss the wheel back on and see if that gets us where we need to be. Okay, we got our wheel back on, torqued it down, and that was definitely the problem. She was just on backwards. Gotta love easy fixes. If only everything was like that, right? And while we're on the subject of wheels, I reckon we'll check this one out as well. I think this wheel's fine back here. I think it's torqued down. But one thing I didn't point out to you guys is this is a chain conversion. This thing would have originally had a belt. And of course, she's just, she's just a little loose, that's all. I think what I'm going to do is just loosen up that axle nut, adjust her chain back out, of course, and then just make sure it'll take a full torque. After seeing what happened with that front one, it just, makes me a little nervous. I think the simple fact that this cotter key is still in here, the way it is, tells me that nobody's really messed with this. At least that's my guess anyway. If you are new to the channel, we are not going to just throw this stuff back on here like we did that front wheel and call it a day. This is just so we can test on it around the block. It was actually a little on the loose side. We just want to get it good enough to, give it a good test and see how everything does. Then we're going to strip this thing down. So this bike will be tore down all the way. Even these wheels will probably either replace or repack the bearings. New wheel seals, the whole works. So we're going to go through everything on it. Oh, it's tightening it. I don't want to tighten it. Everything back here is in pretty good shape. Our caliper and caliper mount looks good. The rotor looks pretty decent. I mean, everything's really dirty, which is to be expected. But even the swing arm looks good. There's no marks or anything. It's almost like all somebody's done over the years is just, maybe swap brake pads. That's about it. I hope that's it. Don't need any problems, do we? And now let's see if we got rear wheel spinach. Oh yeah, perfect. Just like we need. So that is great news. So both wheels are ready to go and ready for the test. Well, I need to try to unstick that throttle. First, let's take a look at our carb, just to make sure everything looks good. I can't imagine there'll be anything bad because the bike did run. Well, these fasteners are in good shape though. Doesn't seem like anything's been messed with too much. Of course, this cover's in great shape. I think I called that out earlier. All right. Boy, this thing is absolutely soaked, as I figured. Trying to see if this is an actual K&N filter. It is a washable one. I do think it's a knockoff, but we can definitely be able to clean that up, reuse on it. Looking in our cover here, there's really not any oil, just a little bit of residue. I figured this thing would be quite a bit fuller than it is. Of course, it has been sitting on the stand for quite a while, so anything that was in there could have dripped out. Of course, we did run the bike before. We know it runs. I didn't anticipate anything bad. And check this out. Just noticed it. Look at that. Allen heads, no flat tips. Of course, I don't know, did they use Allen heads back in the day with these breathers? I'm doubting they did. But That is awesome. So if somebody swapped those, thank you so much. And they're even in good shape. Gotta love that. See in here, no oil, nothing. Just a little residue around there. So I think we're in pretty good shape carb-wise so far. I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect this crank vent to rule this out for oil leaks. And this thing will be rerouted to the bottom when we're done anyway. I just don't like them going up through the carb. That's just me. Somebody got the copper line in there. Gotta love that. And then the fancy red line. And this thing right here, I was looking at this earlier. I need to replace this line. It looks pretty oily, but man, I'm not really sure how to get down to that thing, to be honest. What I'm going to do is just find a piece of hose to just kind of, for now, just route this straight to the bottom, like I said. Just don't want any oil puking out on this when we go to test on it. This is going to look rather crude right here. Now, where do I want to go with this thing? I mean, I guess I could go back through there. And guys, just emphasize, this is just for the test. This is not how this is going to be ran. Just maybe go down through here. This might actually work. Yeah, I think this will work. Just cut off the excess. I think that'll do it right there. Crude looking, but it gets the job done for now. And in case you're not fully sure why I'm diverting or removing this, that is a good question. And there's nothing wrong if you don't know it. If you don't know, you don't know. The newer bikes, well, I call them newer. I think it was 91 and up. I don't remember the exact year. Sportsters went to that as well. They had head breathers up here. You know, if you got a bike, you're probably pretty familiar with that, especially if you've changed your breathers out. But these older ones had breathers down on the crankcase, down there on the bottom. Hence why I'm calling them a crank vent. And so I'm just diverting it because if it pukes oil everywhere while we're testing on it, you know, gets all over the engine, I'm not going to know what the heck's possibly leaking. So number one, I ride my bikes always with these diverted to the bottom, regardless if it's crank vent or head breathers. And especially for this situation where we're testing just to make sure, you know, checking for leaks. Well, I really fear that our throttle cables are pretty much toast. Safe. Found it. Now I got this one backed off all the way and it's giving me like no slack, which tells me this isn't S&S carb. I wonder if somebody put the wrong cables on the bike. It's possible. How on earth did somebody get these things in there? Help me understand that, please. I believe these are the wrong ones. I can just unravel this guy right here. Well, what I'm looking at here, the throttle cable right there is absolutely just crimped up. Somebody took some pliers and kind of forced it on there. I think that's what they did. And then they've got it backed off all the way. Well, let's just unravel everything and try to hook that one back up. Fish this out of here. Probably don't need to do this, but giving it every chance it can to be a little smoother. Our idle cable had an actual kink or bend in it, and it was actually cut. That might have been our problem. Just trying to do everything I can to make this thing work safely so I don't have to update you guys with a video or a short of me in the hospital. There we go. Back it off. Just make sure when you're mounting these things on, just don't, what I meant by backing it off is you don't, if you push this on there too far, this grip can actually bind on the end of the bar, and that can also cause your throttle to hang up. See how that is. Boy, that's loose, but that's a lot better than hanging up. All right, I think that's doable. So we'll go with that. I might try to mess with this a little bit more to see if I can tighten it up some, but at least it's not hanging up. And then this guy down here, this idle cable, you can see where this thing was completely trashed and bent. That was hanging up. So what I'll probably do is either just cut this because I don't want to fool with removing it right now, or I might just zip tie it up through there somewhere just to get us a quick test. So let's get this wiring squared away for this battery. Now let me go ahead and say this real quick. Don't run this tiny gauge wire to your battery like this. I mean, I know somebody did this just to give it, you know, a quick test and everything. But when you run stuff this small, can't even think of what I'm saying, you're running risk of this stuff getting really hot and you could actually get a fire. So if you do this, just, you've been warned, be careful. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and run it because I'm being cheap right now. Now, what doesn't, make sense to me is that we got these wire nuts here. And of course, it may have just been the situation at the time for whoever did this. I mean, I can just take a connector and just connect that there. We don't need to run wire nuts. The same thing here. They could have just taken the connector, hooked it right here, and put it straight onto the negative. But, whatever the situation was, that's fine. What we're going to do, I've got some of these same size connectors for this gauge. I'm going to try to just get some and see if I can't mount one here and mount one there and just go ahead and throw them on the battery like that. But again, guys, like I said, be careful with this. You're really kind of asking for it. Our plan, though, with this bike is to rewire the whole thing, and I am not looking forward to it. I've rewired choppers. I rewired that Sportster on the channel before this, but an ELECTRA Glide is a little bit more involved, and this battery is... It actually worked before. I'm pretty sure it's still good. We'll just try to throw it on the charger and see if it'll do what it needs to do. Batteries are expensive. I don't want to just go buy one unless I got to, All right, I'm going to do some degreasing here on our engine. The reason I'm doing this is I want to be able to see clearly as possible where the leaks are coming from to hopefully narrow it down to what we have to fix. At least that's the theory. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that there are no base gasket or head gasket leaks. But probably base gaskets would be my guess. It's so common on these things. Well, we got our degreasing done. We're ready for a little test run, but check out this engine. Look how this thing looks after just a quick degrease. I mean, that's a 1989 EVO. That thing looks pretty darn good. I kind of wonder if anything's been replaced on this. Rocker boxes still need a little attention, and a little chrome here and there, but man, you get all that stuff polished up, this is going to look pretty darn good. Same with the transmission. Not too bad. Well, we ended up needing a new battery after all. Man, these cables, though, this is... These things are such a bad idea. I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. So before I throw fuel and spark at this bike, I actually went ahead and pulled our plugs. What I want to do is just rotate the engine for two reasons. Number one, you can see I got our crank vent just kind of routed to a pan down there. This bike's been sitting for quite a while, even in my garage. So I want to see if I've got any oil down in the crankcase. Also, our oil tank looks to be about a quart low. Now, you got to be careful. Don't just go and add oil until you've kind of ruled out that there could be oil down in the crankcase, because what happens with a lot of people is they'll add a quart of oil and then they'll end up being way over full. So it's just kind of a good way to kind of rule that stuff out. And also it'll keep us from having a huge mess with this crank vent if it pukes a lot out. Let's see what we get here. Rotator. Oh, I guess I better turn it on, huh? My ignition switch over here is zip tied to the frame. I'm sure that's not a hazard at all. Let's see if we got anything. Well, did I turn it? Did I do it right? I don't know what's going on with this thing. No power. What is the problem? Back to the drawing board. All right, take two. The 30 amp circuit breaker had a loose connection. Go figure, right? So let's see what we get here. Oh, we're working now. All right, let's crank on it and see what happens. Well, we had nothing in the crankcase, which is actually good. I don't think our oil level has changed at all, so I might add just maybe like a half a quart to this, and then we're going to roll her out and see if it'll make some noise. All right, place your bets. Guess we got to turn it on over here. Get here. I think we're good. Our throttle that barely works. Well, I'm not going to lie. That was probably the most sketchy motorcycle ride I've ever been on. I don't know if you saw me when I was leaving the driveway. I was a little bit squirrely leaving. I was starting to kind of reconsider some of my life choices at that moment. So we had no front brakes on the bike. We had our nice little, spongy throttle right here because it's the wrong throttle cable for the carburetor. Also our seat. This wasn't a huge deal, but my butt kept, kind of sliding around. I'm a lightweight guy, so I can't really hold it down that good. And also our clutch feels bad or feels old. The clutch itself actually feels good. It was just gripping at the very end. I don't know if it's an adjustment thing. We might need a new clutch. But with all that going on, it made for quite the squirrely ride, I got to admit, going around the block there. Plus not knowing the history, you have thoughts going through your head. I did hear all kinds of rattles and vibrations and everything. So we limped her around the block, got her back. That's going to be it. I just don't want to go sailing over the handlebars. But let's get into the good and bad on this thing. So as far as bad goes, there's really nothing that jumps out at me that we didn't know already. The only thing I guess would be the clutch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this thing up on the jack later and go ahead and give this clutch a proper adjustment. That way, I can test on it before I start stripping everything off of it, because I don't want to put, I don't want to put a clutch on the bike if I don't need to. But if I have to, clutches aren't that big of a deal. The carburetor's actually, it fired off, perfectly great. You guys saw that. But she was spitting and sputtering a little bit, so we'll be cleaning that out. We do that anyway. And then the exhaust, we were gonna replace the crazy exhaust anyway. But that thing right there, my gosh, that's like bone shaking loud. That is way too loud for me, and it has just, I'm not really too big on the sound of it. Kudos to whoever put that together, giving it a try, but we're gonna definitely be pulling that off. And you guys should have saw on film where we had some oil puking out of our crank vent. That's why I kept that underneath it when I ran it. Now, we did it with just the starter. We didn't get any oil. Usually, if you're getting it with the starter, that means you've got a lot of oil in that crankcase. That, believe it or not, I mean, that's a pretty decent amount, but I have seen them puke out a lot more than that. Just imagine, though, if we'd have left this guy hooked up to the carb, that was the point I was making earlier, every bit of that oil would have been sucked right up into that intake, and then, of course, we would have had it just, dripping all over the engine. Now, for the good stuff, we actually had a little bit more good than I expected, so I'll take that. And we know our engine did good, other than the carburetor spitting and sputtering, but we'll fix that. But the engine ran strong. I didn't see any smoking coming out of this goofy exhaust over here. And all 5 gears went perfectly smooth. And I kind of assumed they were. I've kind of assumed they were going to do good. Now, I had to lug the motor. I did not get this bike that fast because it was way too dangerous. I know lugging it's bad. But I managed to get it through all 5 gears twice. Upshifting and downshifting went good. So I'll call that as a big win. And then the last thing that's really impressing me is I'm not seeing any engine leaks at all. I'm not seeing leaks on the base gaskets, head gaskets, rocker boxes. I checked the bottom of the little cam cover. I checked the bottom of the oil pump. Nothing. I'm not seeing any oil leaks. I'm not seeing anything from the lines. And this bike was pretty, I mean, it wasn't clean underneath, but it was pretty dry for the most part. So where we go from here is we're just going to start stripping her down. Now, there's 2 small things I still got to do before I can do that. We already talked about the clutch. I got to adjust that. Also, I think I'm going to let her run a little bit, just to kind of rule out again any leaks. I'm kind of in denial about that. I'm not going to lie. It just seems a little too easy that there's no leaks on this thing. And then the other thing is, unfortunately, we have no title for this bike, so we're getting a title bond. And I don't want this thing to be torn down at all when law enforcement comes to look at it. They're supposed to be here in a few days. Just want to kind of, rule that out. I would hate for them to be like, you got to put everything back on it. So once we take care of those things, we're going to start tearing her down. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as well as the new project that we got on the channel. When we get back with you guys, we're going to start stripping this bike down, and who knows what problems we may find. But if you want to catch these future videos, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. As always, I thank you guys so much for watching. We'll chat with you next time.